My name is Ashley. I am 27 years old, and I never imagined waking up in a hospital bed with metal rods in my legs. What felt even worse than the pain was hearing my mother's voicemail. She was telling me they were boarding a plane to Italy, as if everything was normal. The accident left me shattered, but hearing her calm voice saying, "We are off to Rome with Jake. Don't bother calling us while we are there," was like a knife in my heart. My own parents abandoned me when I needed them the most, using my money to fund their dream vacation. What they did not realize was that their Roman getaway would end up costing them everything they owned. Before I reveal how I managed to turn their betrayal to my advantage, tell me where you are watching from in the comments below. Click the like button if you have ever had to teach your family a tough lesson, and subscribe to find out how I handled more than just their flight home. Growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, my family looked perfect to outsiders. My father, Mark, was a high school history teacher. My mother, Linda, ran a small bookkeeping business from our home. My younger brother, Jake, was the star basketball player everyone admired. I was the quiet, studious type who did well in school but never received the same recognition or attention as my brother. Still, I believed we were tight-knit. Family dinners were mandatory. Summer weekends were spent at Lake Michigan, and holiday celebrations with extended relatives were always grand. My parents consistently stressed the importance of education. When I was awarded a complete scholarship to pursue computer science at the University of Illinois, my family felt proud. Yet, in retrospect, their pride appeared more linked to the fact that my education came at no cost to them instead of my genuine accomplishment. While they cheered at every one of Jake's basketball games, they missed my college commencement ceremony because it coincided with his regional competition. After finishing college, I secured a position at Tech Fusion, a rapidly expanding software firm in Chicago. I began as a junior developer, but rapidly demonstrated my abilities, climbing the ladder to become a senior software engineer in 4 years. My income increased significantly, and by the age of 25, I earned a 6-figure salary. That was when the family dynamics began to change quietly. My parents had always faced financial difficulties. My father's income as a teacher was modest, and my mother's bookkeeping business declined as more individuals turned to accounting programs. When I received my first notable bonus at work, I offered to assist them in paying off some credit card balances. They accepted with emotional thanks, and I felt proud to support those who raised me. However, what began as occasional aid soon turned into a demand. Within half a year, I was covering their mortgage payments. 3 months later, I was paying for their vehicles. By the time I reached the age of 26, I was effectively the primary financial provider for my entire family. My parents retired ahead of time, citing vague health problems. I left college, returned to my parents' home, and cycled through several part-time jobs, never sticking with any longer than half a year, because they felt beneath me. I was clocking in 60 hours a week, while my family enjoyed the rewards of my hard work. Mom and Dad improved their simple house by adding a swimming pool and an outdoor kitchen. Jake was driving a sports car that I was still paying for. They took weekend trips to nearby states and sent me pictures of luxury hotels and fancy restaurants, always ending with a "thank you, Ashley." A message that started to feel increasingly empty. The tension grew when I began asking about some of their expenditures. Things got uncomfortable when I questioned why I was expected to cover Dad's golf club membership. He accused me of not wanting him to enjoy his retirement. When I suggested Jake look for full-time work, Mum defended him, by saying he was just trying to find himself and that I was being unsupportive. Despite these warning signs, I kept providing financial support. I had a spreadsheet with all the monthly payments. $1,000 for their mortgage, $800 for each car payment, $2,000 for general costs, $500 for Jake's career development, plus countless extras for unexpected expenses they would suddenly ask me to cover. Altogether, I was sending nearly $10,000 every month, leaving myself enough only to rent a small apartment and save a little. Just 2 weeks before the accident, I finally started setting limits. I told them I needed to reduce the monthly contributions. I asked for an allowance so I could save up for my own place. The discussion turned sour quickly. Mum shed tears, Dad raised his voice, and Jake accused me of being selfish. They reminded me of everything they had given up to raise me, the extent of their support for my education, and how families are meant to look after one another. I left their home feeling overwhelmed with guilt, yet resolute to improve the situation. Then the accident happened. I was driving home late after a tiring night at work, yet feeling proud for completing a major project. Suddenly, a drunk driver ran a red light and collided with the driver's side of my car at 50 miles per hour. I recall the sound of screeching tires, the crash of shattering glass, and then nothing until I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. The injuries were severe. Both legs were fractured, requiring metal rods to be surgically implanted. Several ribs were broken, accompanied by a concussion and internal bleeding that demanded urgent surgery. The doctors told me I was fortunate to be alive, but warned that recovery would be long and challenging, involving numerous surgeries, months in the hospital, and intensive rehabilitation. In those hazy moments after regaining consciousness, my first concern was for my family. I asked the nurse to contact them, sure they would hurry to my side once they knew how serious the accident was. She informed me they had been notified right after I arrived and had dropped by briefly while I was unconscious. They left no message about returning. I attempted to call them myself, but the calls, I went straight to voicemail. It was not until the following morning that I received the message that would alter everything about our relationship forever. The hospital room was silent, apart from the steady beeping of the machines, when my phone vibrated with a voicemail alert. I assumed it was from work checking in, so I awkwardly held the phone with my less injured arm and pressed play. I put it on speaker because holding it to my ear was too uncomfortable. Ashley, hi sweetie, it's Mom. My mother's voice sounded cheerful, almost excited. Dad and I just wanted to let you know we're at the airport, about to board our flight to Rome. We've been planning this trip for months. And now that Jake is between jobs again, we decided to bring him along too. The doctor said, "You will be in the hospital for a while, so there is no point in us sitting around Chicago when we could be seeing the Colosseum, right?" I heard my father's voice in the background. "Tell her not to call us while we're there. International roaming is costly." "Oh yes," my mother continued. "Mark says, don't bother calling us while we are in Rome. The roaming fees are crazy, and we'll be too busy sightseeing anyway. We'll be back in 3 weeks. The hospital has our email if there is an emergency." There was a pause. Then laughter I recognized as Jake's. Jake says, "Thanks for the spending money. Ciao, Bella." The message ended, and I lay there stunned. The painkillers were no longer effective against the new kind of suffering spreading across my chest. While I lay confined to a hospital bed, nursing broken bones and internal injuries, they had gone to Italy and taken Jake with them. When Dr. Monica Lewis came to check on me an hour later, she found me overwhelmed by uncontrollable sobbing. The physical agony had turned unbearable. Yet I refused to press the morphine button, feeling deep inside that I deserved the pain. Without hesitation, she increased my dosage and sat beside my bed, her compassionate eyes full of concern. "Is your family here?" she asked quietly. I nodded but could not form words through my tears. "I have worked as a trauma surgeon for 15 years, she explained, her voice calm yet resolute. "I have seen every kind of family reaction after an accident. Some stay by their loved one's side for weeks, while others struggle to face the pain and visit only occasionally. But I have never—" She paused. "They have gone to Italy," I whispered painfully. "On vacation with my brother." For a brief moment, Dr. Lewis's professional calm faltered. Her eyes filled with disbelief. "I am so sorry, Ashley," she said gently. News traveled fast among the hospital staff. Nurses became especially attentive, frequently visiting my room, even when it was not time for medication or vital checks. One nurse named Riley Thomas spent her lunch break sitting with me, sharing funny hospital tales and stories about her three-legged rescue dog, brightening my long hospital days. My roommate, Samantha Wilson, a woman of 60 years recovering from gallbladder surgery, witnessed my breakdown when I first heard the voicemail. She became fiercely protective, confronting a young resident who questioned why no family members were around to discuss my care plan. She said, "She is family." Samantha had snapped me out of it. "Now explain the treatment options again, and use simpler words this time," I demanded. That evening, I tried contacting my parents once more, hoping there had been some misunderstanding. Once again, my calls went straight to voicemail. I sent text messages that showed as delivered, but got no replies. I even reached out to Jake, thinking my brother might at least check on my well-being. After 3 attempts, he finally answered saying, "Can't talk on gondola in Venice. Mum says you'll be fine. Nurses will take care of you. That is their job." That night, unable to sleep despite the painkillers, I found myself scrolling through social media. That is when I saw it. A photograph posted by my mother 3 weeks earlier showing her, Dad and Jake holding printed Italian airline tickets, with a caption counting down to our Roman holiday. 21 days until we say Orshi to Chicago. They had scheduled this trip weeks before my accident. The timing was no unlucky coincidence. They had purposely chosen to go, despite knowing I was seriously hurt. Digging deeper into their posts, I uncovered more proof of their betrayal. My mother had shared in a private family group. They talked about their summer extravagance and how they needed to ask Ashley for a little more this month. There were jokes about Rome being costly, and Jake requiring extra money for Italian fashion. The final shock hit when I reviewed my credit card statements online and uncovered a $15,000 charge to a luxury travel agency dated just 2 days after my accident. They hadn't simply left me behind. They had spent my own funds to do so. The days following this revelation were the bleakest of my life. The physical agony from my injuries seemed to intensify the emotional torment of being betrayed. Every painful therapy session became a battle on 2 fronts. Against my damaged body and my shattered spirit, I clenched my teeth through agonizing exercises, tears running down my cheeks, while the gentle giant of a therapist named Marcus gave me encouragement I could hardly accept. He would say, "You're doing great, Ashley. You are stronger than you realize." Yet I did not feel strong. I felt deceived and foolish. As I gradually regained my movement, memories of past betrayals emerged, like hidden fragments slowly surfacing from an old wound. I recalled my 16th birthday, when my parents had promised a special dinner, but cancelled at the last moment because Jake had an unexpected basketball scrimmage. I had sat alone in the house with a store-bought cake, opening my own gifts. There was also the college parents' weekend they missed because it clashed with my father's golf tournament. You get it, right, sweetheart? You have always been so self-reliant, my mother once remarked. Then there was my appendectomy. 3 years ago, they came by briefly during my recovery, but left after less than an hour, explaining they had tickets to a concert they had eagerly awaited for months. It is just an appendix, my mother said. You are not dying or anything. Each flashback stirred up new waves of hurt as I realized my family's indifferent behavior was not something new caused by the stress from my accident. It was their usual way, and I had been justifying their actions for years. The hospital team became like a second family to me. Riley, the nurse who spent her lunch breaks with me, began bringing homemade food, insisting that the hospital meals would slow down my healing. Dr. Lewis stopped by every day, even on days when she wasn't making rounds near my room. The night janitor, a kind elderly man named Walter, would interrupt his cleaning to share stories about his grandchildren and sneak me cookies from the staff lounge. Samantha had already been discharged, but came to see me twice, each week carrying magazines and audiobooks to help the hours pass. My daughter believes I am at Bridge Club, she shared with a playful smile. But I would rather be here with you. You remind me of her when she was your age, though she was never as strong as you. I did not feel strong. I felt empty inside, like a hollow shell just going through the motions of getting better. While deep down, I was still that 16-year-old girl sitting alone in pain. Left alone with her birthday cake, the financial pressure was growing unbearable. My health insurance took care of most medical bills, but not entirely. The deductibles and co-pays kept adding up, and I was still automatically sending money to my parents' accounts every month because I lacked the emotional strength to stop the payments. Then there were the social media updates. My family shared every moment of their Italian trip. Photos of my father and brother savoring gelato by the Trevi fountain. My mother posing with new designer sunglasses outside shops on the Via Condotti. Jake wearing a leather jacket beside a rented Vespa. Each caption read "Living la dolce vita" or "When in Rome," without a single word about me or my situation. The breaking point came 3 weeks into my hospital stay, during a cruel night when pain relief failed. I was wide awake at 3 a.m, scrolling through yet another album from my family's holiday, when I found one photo that shattered me completely. My mother, father, and brother were dining at a fancy rooftop restaurant overlooking the Roman Forum, all raising champagne glasses in a toast. The caption said, "To freedom and new beginnings." I threw my phone against the wall. It crashed to the ground with a shattering screen, breaking just like my hopes for my family. The night nurse hurried in, startled by the loud noise. She discovered me, overwhelmed with sobs, my whole body trembling under the weight of grief and anger finally breaking free. "They do not love me," I managed to say between gasps. "They never have." The nurse, an elderly woman named Patricia, quietly took a seat beside my bed and grasped my hand, allowing me to weep until my tears ran dry. Once my cries had dwindled to sporadic hiccuping, she gently spoke. "Here is what I believe," she said, her tone gentle yet unwavering. "Anyone who would abandon their daughter alone in a hospital to take a holiday does not deserve her tears, and certainly does not deserve her money." Her words sparked a change within me. The emptiness was replaced by a fiery resolve. She was right. They had no claim to my tears. They had no right to my money. More importantly, they did not deserve the control I had allowed them to hold over me, the power to hurt me. That night, as dawn's first light crept through the window of my hospital room, I resolved that I was worthy of more, and that I would fight to obtain it. The next morning, I requested a meeting with a hospital social worker. Jessica Martinez arrived that afternoon, a straightforward woman with compassionate eyes and a notebook filled with helpful contacts. I recounted everything, my voice more confident than it had been in weeks. "What you are describing is emotional abuse and financial manipulation," she stated bluntly after hearing my experience. "Just because it happens within a family does not make it acceptable. In fact, it makes it worse." Jessica helped me recognize the patterns that had escaped my notice for so many years. The emotional manipulation, the guilt trips, and the gradual isolation from my other relationships caused by the increasing demands on my time and resources. She gave me books about codependency and financial exploitation, and connected me with a therapist who specialized in family trauma. "Recovery is not just about physical health," she explained. "Emotional healing is equally vital and often more challenging." My next step was to contact Mark Bennett, a financial advisor recommended by one of the doctors. He visited my hospital room the following day, carrying his laptop and wearing a look of determined concern after hearing about my circumstances. "Let's assess exactly what we are dealing with," he said, opening spreadsheets for my accounts as I shared passwords and details. The reality that unfolded was far worse than I had feared. In addition to the monthly transfers, there were numerous unauthorized credit card charges. My parents had access to most of my accounts, a system I had set up many years ago to help them with bills. They had been using this access extensively, treating my finances as if they were their own. "You are essentially funding their entire lifestyle," Mark said, shaking his head. "And given what you've told me about their spending in Italy, they show no signs of stopping." We spent several hours devising a plan to separate our finances, one that would need to be thorough and secure. All efforts needed to be thorough and completed simultaneously in order to stop them from shifting money around. Once they became aware of the situation, Mark suggested consulting a lawyer for assistance with the legal complexities of unwinding our finances. A few days later, Jake Clark, the attorney Mark had recommended, came to visit me. His knowledge in family financial conflicts was invaluable as he laid out my possible courses of action. "Because you are not handling elderly parents with mental decline and there is no official guardianship or power of attorney in place, you are fully entitled to halt any financial support," Jake said. "They might attempt to claim that they deserve your assistance, but legally, they have no solid basis." We talked about possible consequences, including the chance that my parents might take me to court. Jake assured me that their case would lack strength, but advised me to keep detailed records just in case. He told me to save voicemails, capture screenshots of social media posts, and keep track of any unauthorized spending. "If they try to portray you as the bad guy, we will have plenty of proof to show otherwise." While I was preparing for all this, an unexpected guest arrived, my father's sister Margaret, whom I had not seen for many years due to a dispute with my parents, had somehow heard about my accident. "Your colleague Ashley from work got in touch with me," she said carefully, sitting on the edge of my hospital bed. "She found me through your... An emergency contact list from many years ago was discovered, preceding the time your parents forced you to remove me. Aunt Margaret unveiled hidden family truths that finally clarified everything. My parents had a lengthy background of financial carelessness, accumulating debts and constantly seeking bailouts. Before I achieved success in my career and gained financial stability, they had burned bridges by borrowing money from relatives without repayment. She told me they treated your grandfather similarly, draining his retirement funds for a cruise while he was in hospice care." Her voice tightened by lingering resentment. "I tried to intervene, which explains why we haven't communicated for years." She also revealed that their estrangement worsened when she refused to lend them money for a Florida timeshare about 3 years ago, coinciding with my promotion and salary increase. They simply found a new way to get money, through me. "I should have done more to warn you," she said with a heavy sense of regret. "But Mark threatened to completely cut me off from seeing you if I got involved. Aunt Margaret kindly offered her guest house for me to stay in as I recovered after leaving the hospital. The space is single level and includes a walk-in shower equipped with grab bars. She had it remodeled for Mom before she passed away. With my physical healing progressing and my support network growing, I began preparing myself emotionally for the steps ahead. My therapist, Dr. Rebecca Collins, guided me as I worked through these feelings. The feelings of guilt and fear emerged as I considered severing financial connections with my family. "You are not forsaking them," she reassured me during one of our conversations. "You are creating healthy boundaries. There is a vast difference between these two actions." By the close of my 6th week in the hospital, the strategy was set. My parents and brother were expected to arrive back from Italy in 4 days. I had a detailed list of steps to follow, legal paperwork ready, and emotional support arranged. The physical agony from my injuries was gradually diminishing, replaced by a quiet determination. The evening before I was to carry out my plan, Riley brought dinner and lingered after her work hours. Over the weeks, we had developed a strong bond. Her daily visits became something I anticipated with growing affection. "Are you certain you want to proceed with this?" she inquired as we shared a forbidden pizza in my hospital room. "You can still reconsider." I glanced down at my legs, still encased in braces, yet healing steadily each day. Then I met her worried eyes. "Never have I been more confident," I replied. "They deserted me in my time of greatest need, spent my money doing so, and showed no remorse. If I do not act now, nothing will ever change." Riley gave a nod, gently squeezing my hand. "Then I support you fully." That night, I experienced restful sleep for the first time since the accident, ready to take back control of my life and finances when dawn arrived. I woke up early the following morning, filled with determination despite my body still recovering. "Today is the day everything turns around," I told myself. Ashley arrived just before her shift began, bringing coffee and a much-needed boost of encouragement. "Are you ready?" she asked as she pulled a chair closer to my bedside. I nodded while picking up my laptop. "Let's get started." We began with the banking tasks. Following Mark's precise directions, I removed my parents from the list of authorized users on all my accounts and updated every single password. I also stopped the automatic transfers that had been depositing money into their checking account each month. Then I shifted the majority of my savings to a brand new account at a completely different bank, one with which they had no connections. After finishing with the bank, it was time to handle the credit cards. I contacted each card company, reported the cards as compromised, and asked for new cards with fresh numbers to be issued. For the card that my parents and Jake took to Italy, I specifically claimed the recent charges were unauthorized, which launched a fraud investigation. Benjamin had advised me that this was necessary because technically, I never approved their use of the card for a luxury vacation while I was unconscious in the hospital. The fraud department will reach out to them, I said to Ashley as I ended the last call. That might be the moment they realize something is wrong. The most rewarding part of this process was yet to come. Using the airline website and the confirmation number I had found earlier, I accessed the booking for their return trip from Rome to Chicago using the email account. Apparently, my father had made the reservation with my email while charging it to my credit card. With just a few clicks, I cancelled their return tickets and received a partial credit on my account. Riley's eyes widened as she asked if they would be stranded in Italy. I assured her this was only temporary, explaining they have their own credit cards and will need to rely on their own funds to get home this time. Next, we addressed the tangible expenses. I had been covering payments for both my parents' car and Jake's sports car. I contacted the leasing company to inform them I would not continue making payments on vehicles that were not in my possession. I arranged for Jake's car to be retrieved from the long-term parking lot at the airport where he had left it. The mortgage was more complicated since my name was not on the property deed, so I could not interfere with the house itself. However, I did stop the payments I had been making. I also reached out to their utility providers and removed my credit cards from all payment accounts. Step by step, we went through the list, intentionally dismantling the financial support system I had established for my family over the years. Cell phone plans, streaming subscriptions, club dues, insurance policies, internet and cable bills. Everything I was paying for, I either cancelled or absolved myself of financial responsibility. By midday, we had completed most of the financial separation, and I already felt a sense of relief. With every tie I cut, it felt as though I was physically shedding burdens that had been weighing me down. "What about their things?" Riley inquired when we paused for lunch. "Is there anything of yours at their house you want to retrieve?" I thought of the jewelry my grandmother had left me, which my mother had borrowed many years ago. There were also vital documents and cherished keepsakes in my old bedroom that I did not want to lose access to. "There is, but I cannot exactly go over there in my current state," I replied, indicating my still braced legs. Riley smiled broadly. "What if you had assistance? I am off tomorrow, and my brother owns a truck." The following day, while my family was still enjoying their last days in Italy, completely unaware of the challenges awaiting them back home, Riley and her brother Mark helped me carry out the final stage of my plan. The hospital allowed me a day pass, and with a foldable wheelchair and careful handling, we made our way to my parents' house. I still had a key, and the security code had remained unchanged for years. We entered lawfully, with the explicit intention of collecting only my personal belongings. Benjamin had given precise instructions on what I could legally take to avoid any claims of theft. We started by gathering my important documents: birth certificate, social security card, old passports, and tax records. Then, we picked up my personal mementos, photo albums from my childhood, academic honors my parents had never bothered to showcase, and presents from friends they had dismissed as insignificant. Messy and disorganized, inside my mother's jewelry box, I discovered my grandmother's treasures, including the pearl necklace she wore on her wedding day and intentionally bequeathed to me in her will. My mother had claimed these jewels as her own many years ago, and seeing them again stirred a mix of frustration and relief within me. She had worn that necklace to a charity event just last year. I told Riley this as I gently placed the necklace into a small pouch and shared pictures of it on social media, talking about family heirlooms as if she had never taken it from me. In my father's study, I uncovered financial papers that verified what Aunt Margaret had revealed to me earlier. Years of poor management, loans from relatives, and even a second mortgage on the house I was completely unaware of. This discovery shed light on why they had been so eager to request my financial support, despite living in a comfortable home and driving luxury vehicles. Their entire lifestyle was sustained by debt, and more recently, by my earnings. The most astonishing find was in Jake's room. Within his desk drawer, I came across a real estate agent's card specializing in retirement communities in Florida, along with brochures for several such neighborhoods. Attached to these was a handwritten budget detailing how much they expected from Ashley every month to afford the relocation. They had been planning to ask me to finance their early retirement in Florida, leaving me responsible for paying off their current mortgage. As we loaded the last of my possessions into Danny's truck, I took one final look. I stared at the house where I had spent my childhood. It sheltered some cherished memories buried beneath the recent sorrow. Yet, it no longer felt like my sanctuary. Home was a place I had yet to discover, but I understood now it would be constructed according to my wishes, with people who genuinely valued me. Back at the hospital, Riley and Danny assisted me in sorting through my retrieved belongings. Aunt Margaret arrived later that evening to take the most precious items for safekeeping until I was released. "You have done the right thing," she assured me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "It will be tough when they come back, but remember, you are not alone anymore." The last part of my plan was forming a fresh support network. I reached out to co-workers I had lost contact with because of my family's unending demands on my time. I reconnected with old college friends, accepted invitations for dinner, and scheduled plans for after my recovery. Piece by piece, I was reconstructing my life alongside people who chose to be present for me. As I drifted to sleep that night, I felt not only physically stronger, but emotionally empowered. Whatever storm awaited me when my family returned, I was prepared to face it. For the first time in many years, I stood up for myself instead of constantly supporting everyone else. And it felt exactly right. The storm arrived 3 days later, earlier than I expected. At around 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Apparently, my family had tried to check into their hotel in Florence, only to be met with an unexpected situation. They found their credit cards declined. When trying to access their bank accounts, they noticed the modifications I had made. Attempts to reach me were met with blocks on every platform except email. I purposely kept email open to record their replies. The messages began with anger and accusations. One said, "What do you think you are doing? Fix this at once." Another pleaded, "Dad, is this some twisted prank? We are stuck abroad because of you." There was also, "Mom, you are so selfish. I am stranded in Italy without money because of you, Jake." As the night went on and they seemingly grasped the financial alterations, their tone changed to emotional appeals. "Honey, if this is about us vacationing while you're in the hospital, we can discuss it when we return home. For now, The credit cards must be reactivated for us to book flights. Mom, Ashley, I am not sure what came over you, but families don't behave this way. Your mother is very upset, and you know her blood pressure condition. Please fix this immediately. By morning, their messages escalated into threats. If you don't correct this now, do not expect to be part of this family any longer. Dad, I'll hire a lawyer as soon as we're back. What you are doing is illegal. Mum, you will regret this, I promise. I shared the emails with Benjamin, who reassured me they had no legal basis. They are lashing out because they are losing control. He explained his desire to control you and your finances. Stay strong and adhere to the plan I devised. I had composed a single reply, created with Mark's assistance, which I sent to all three of them. I am recovering from critical injuries in the hospital where I have been for more than 6 weeks. During this period, you chose to vacation in Italy, using my credit card without permission after explicitly instructing me not to contact you while you were away. I have regained control over my financial matters and will no longer fund your lifestyle. Any threats or ongoing harassment will be documented and reported to the authorities if needed. I am open to further discussion when you return, but only with a mediator present. Their reactions were predictably furious, but I refrained from responding. Instead, I concentrated on my healing and braced myself for the unavoidable confrontation upon their return. It took them 5 days to reach Chicago, forced to book economy flights, using their limited credit and borrowing money from friends to cover hotel expenses until departure. Ashley was with me when the hospital called to announce that my family was in the lobby, insisting on seeing me. You do not have to face them today, she reminded me. Or ever, if you do not want to. But I was ready for this moment. I told her I needed to confront them, but did not want to be alone. Ashley nodded and said she would be right beside me. Then I asked the nurse to allow them to come. I got up and asked security to stay close just in case. Then I adjusted my bed into a sitting position, took a deep breath, and waited. They rushed into the room like a whirlwind, all speaking at the same time. My mother looked disordered. My father was flushed with anger, and Jake appeared gloomy. They quieted immediately when they noticed Riley standing protectively by my side. Who is she? My mother demanded. Tell her to leave. This is family business. Riley stays, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She is the family who stood by me while you were off sightseeing in Rome. My father stammered. How dare you? After everything we have done for you. Is this how you repay us? Cancelling our flights, cutting off our funds, embarrassing us in front of our friends who had to send us money. Embarrassing you? I echoed, feeling a rush of justified anger that had been growing for weeks. You left your daughter alone in a hospital, after a nearly fatal car accident, to take a vacation with her money. And you are worried about embarrassment? We had been planning that trip for months, my mother argued. We could not just cancel everything because you had an accident. The doctor said you would recover. I might not have, I said softly. I could have died while you were posing by the Trevi fountain. Did that ever cross your mind? A flicker of something like shame passed over my mother's face before it was quickly replaced by defensive anger. You are overreacting. You are never really in danger of facing death. Actually, she was. Riley interrupted, her professional nurse tone fully apparent. Ashley was suffering from internal bleeding and urgently needed surgery. Complications arose soon after. The doctors considered putting her into a medically induced coma at one moment. Where were you when the family consultation about her care was needed? Oh, yes. Enjoying gelato in Venice. My family appeared momentarily shocked, but Jake quickly gathered himself. This is not about the accident, he sneered. This is about money. You have always been selfish with your success. Heaven forbid you share a bit with those who raised you. Share. I chuckled, though there was no laughter in it. Jake, I have been covering all the expenses. Your car, your career development funds, that you waste on video games and bar tabs, the roof above your head, the food you eat. I have not been sharing. I have been supporting all of you entirely. We are your parents, my father said, as if that justified everything. Of course, you should support us in our retirement. Both of you are in your early 60s and in good health, I pointed out. Most people your age still work. And even if you had retired properly, that does not give you the right to luxury vacations at my expense while I lie in a hospital bed. The argument dragged on, circling endlessly as they tried every manipulation tactic they had. They resorted to guilt, after always sacrificing to raise you. They attempted gaslighting, saying you're remembering things incorrectly. We have always stood by you. They attempted intimidation. You will never see us again if you do not correct this, they warned. They even feigned concern. We are worried about your mental state. Perhaps the head injury impaired your judgment, they suggested. Amidst all this, I stayed composed. Jake's unwavering support beside me reminded me that I was no longer alone. Finally, as it became evident their strategies were ineffective, my father switched to bargaining. All right, we should not have traveled to Italy while you were hospitalized. We admit that was thoughtless, he acknowledged. But you cannot completely sever ties with us. We have expenses due next week. I clarified that I was not cutting them off from a modest allowance or some extra spending money. I have been covering your entire lives, more than $10,000 a month, month after month for years. That ends now. My mother's face lost its color at the mention of the mortgage and the cars. You will need to downsize, I said. Sell the house, find jobs, live within your actual means like everyone else. Jobs? At our age? My father exploded. This is absurd. I found brochures for Florida retirement communities in Jake's room. I confronted them. Were you planning to inform me about this before or after you had me sign the checks? Their guilty looks confirmed my suspicions. You were exploiting me, I said, my voice trembling slightly for the first time, not just financially, but emotionally. You took and took without end, and the one time I needed you, you were nowhere to be found. He abandoned me for a vacation that I'd paid for. Do you have any idea how that feels? Silence lingered for a long moment. Then my mother, always the tactician, tried one last approach. Ashley, dear, we love you. We have always loved you. We made an error in choosing the timing of the trip, and we apologize. But do not ruin your family over a single poor decision. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not the mother who raised me, but a woman who had learned to manipulate others to get her way. For the first time, I realized how I had allowed this behavior for years. It was not one bad decision, I said softly. It was a series of choices that revealed exactly where I stood with you. Now I am making my own decision. I reached for the folder Mark handed me, which contained documents Benjamin had prepared. These are the conditions under which I am willing to maintain a relationship with you moving forward, I explained, giving the folder to my father. I will not provide financial assistance beyond a single transition payment to help you adapt. I will consider attending family occasions if my boundaries are respected. I am open to rebuilding our connection, but only with professional mediation and sincere effort on everyone's part. My father flipped through the papers, his expression darkening with every page. This is offensive. We are your parents, not business partners. Those are my terms, I said firmly. Accept them or walk away. And what if we abandon them? My mother asked. Her voice strained. I met her eyes without wavering. Then you will leave me too. For good this time. They walked out without agreeing to the conditions, storming off while making threats and accusations. Jake hesitated in the doorway, a troubled look on his face. They will lose the house, he whispered. Where am I supposed to go? You might consider finding employment, I offered, acting like an adult. That is what most people do at 24. He shook his head, mumbling something about family loyalty as he followed our parents out. When they had left, I fell back against the pillows, emotionally exhausted but oddly calm. Ashley held my hand, I said. You did it, she responded with pride. How do you feel? I reflected on her question carefully. Sad, I confessed, but also liberated. The next months were difficult, but life-changing. My physical healing advanced steadily, with small milestones that seemed enormous. The first time I stood while holding on to parallel bars, the day I managed to take 3 steps with a walker, the morning I showered without help. Each success represented not only bodily recovery, but also emotional growth. The situation with my family changed in ways I had not foreseen. As expected, they were forced to sell the house after failing to pay the mortgage without my help. My father, after weeks of angry emails and one especially harsh voicemail about ungrateful children, finally got a job teaching history at a local community college. My mother, confronting financial challenges, perhaps, for the first time in her adult life, began working part-time at a nearby bookstore. Jake's reaction caught me off guard the most. After spending about a month moving between friends' couches, he appeared at the rehabilitation center where I'd been moved, feeling awkward and guarded. Yet he showed up. I still think you're mistaken about Mom and Dad, he said, shifting uneasily in the visitor chair. But what he said about you in the car, after we left the hospital, was not right. It was the closest thing to an apology I expected from him, so I accepted it. Over the next several weeks, he came by occasionally, and our talks gradually shifted from family conflicts to his personal challenges. I don't know how to manage this, he confessed on one visit. Being an adult, getting a real job, living without someone funding everything. I could have said I told you so, or pointed out that most people figure these things out on their own. Instead, I offered something far more valuable than money: guidance. I know someone at Tech Fusion who is looking for an entry-level IT support person, I told him. It is not glamorous, but it is steady work with good benefits and chances to advance. I can recommend you if you are interested. He accepted, and to my surprise, took the chance seriously. It was not an immediate change, but months later, seeing him proudly show his first genuine paycheck hinted at a positive transformation. The process was ongoing. My parents were more reluctant to accept the situation. They tried different tactics, including emotional manipulation and guilt disguised as attempts to make peace, along with sudden financial crises that seemed to demand my urgent help. Each time I held firm to the boundaries I had established, reminding them of the conditions I had set. Half a year after our confrontation in the hospital room, they finally consented to meet with a family counselor. The sessions were challenging, as old wounds were reopened and painful realities were faced. Progress moved at an uneven pace, with occasional backward steps mixed with important breakthroughs. Healing does not mean ignoring or denying the pain, Dr. Fiona Marshall, our therapist, said during one intense session. It means recognizing the suffering, understanding where it comes from, and deciding to move forward with clear limits and practical expectations. As I carried on with my physical therapy, I found unexpected comfort in supporting others. I began volunteering with a group for those recovering from car crashes, sharing my journey not only in physical healing, but emotional recovery as well. Every Saturday, I joined a circle of people whose lives had been changed instantly, listening to their experiences and offering empathy that only survivors understand. The connections I'd started to renew during my hospital stay grew stronger. Aunt Margaret became a steady presence in my daily life became clear. Our weekly dinners offered a special opportunity to reconnect with the family history that I had once tried to forget. As I grew closer to friends, I discovered the value of investing emotionally in those who returned care and respect. Then there was Riley. What started as a kind nurse simply checking on a patient developed into something neither of us had predicted. Our first official outing was a wheelchair-friendly picnic in the hospital garden. By the time I left the rehabilitation center, we were meeting regularly, forming a bond rooted in mutual respect and sincere kindness. One evening, while cooking dinner together in the accessible apartment I had rented, she asked, "Do you know what I noticed about you first? Even in your darkest moments, you never lost your dignity. You were hurt, but unbroken." 9 months after the accident, I went back to work on a part-time basis, thankful for an employer who preserved my position and supported my ongoing recovery. My co-workers greeted me with a desk adorned with plants and a card signed by everyone in the office. Although my finances had suffered during my long medical absence, they were beginning to improve. Without the strain of providing for my parents and brother, I managed to rebuild my savings and even considered buying my own house. It struck me as an unexpected twist that by ending the financial responsibility of supporting my family, I was finally on a firmer footing myself. At last, I had the chance to invest in my own future. Exactly 1 year after the incident, I hosted a small gathering in my new apartment. It was a ground floor unit with spacious doorways and an open layout designed to accommodate the occasional mobility devices I still needed occasionally. Ashley was present along with Aunt Margaret, Samantha from the hospital, several co-workers who had become friends, and somewhat hesitantly, my parents and Jake. The event was not flawless. Conversations were sometimes awkward, and old tensions occasionally resurfaced. But it was genuine. A fresh kind of family connection founded on transparency rather than exploitation. As we enjoyed a meal together, I glanced at the faces of those who chose to be there. Those who stood by me during the darkest chapter of my life. I felt a calmness I never thought possible a year before. Later that evening, after everyone except Ashley had left, I stood by the window gazing at the city lights. "Henny, "What are you thinking?" she asked, moving beside me. I was reflecting on how sometimes the worst events in life can bring about the greatest transformations. I replied, "If I had not had that accident, if my family had not deserted me at my lowest point, I might never have found the courage to break free from the cycle. I might still be exhausting myself trying to finance their lifestyle, believing that was the meaning of love." Ashley squeezed my hand, her fingers entwined with mine. With Mark, our paths crossed in a way that might never have happened otherwise. I smiled, resting into her steady, reassuring presence. That would have been the greatest loss of all. The journey had been far from simple. My body occasionally ached from past wounds, and my heart still held the marks left by my family's betrayal. Yet, I realized that healing does not mean completely wiping away the pain. It is about growing alongside it, creating a life where the pain becomes just one thread in a broader, more meaningful narrative. If you have ever had to reconstruct your life after being let down, or had to establish limits with family members who didn't appreciate you, I would love to hear your experience in the comments. Was there a moment when you understood you deserved more? What gave you the courage to make a change? Please like this video if you believe that sometimes the family we choose carries greater significance than the one we are born into. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about discovering inner strength during life's unforeseen trials. Keep in mind, it is never too late to rewrite the rules of your connections and build the life you genuinely deserve. Thank you for hearing my story.